The Acolyte, Episode 3, Destiny. Alright, so this is the flashback episode that we've been waiting for to answer a lot of our questions regarding Osha and Mae's past. We start things off 16 years into the past on Brendok, where we learn that the twins weren't from some run-of-the-mill village or anything like that, which I originally presumed, nor are they normal per se either. Turns out they belong to this all-female commune of witches, and the leader, Anastasia, is their mother. Can't say I was expecting this, but then again, I'm not too surprised since we did see witches show up in the trailer, so yeah, it's kind of expected that they would show up, but yeah, I didn't think that they were related or anything like that. And the whole time after learning about this fact, I was thinking to myself, okay, but who's these girls' father since all I see is women everywhere? Like, is this the case with the Night Sisters who dominated the local Dathomirian Zabrak men, using them only as sex slaves to breed new children and whatnot? And well, based on the twins' skin complexions too, it's gotta be a light-skinned human male as well. Which, as we get further into the episode, we then soon learn that, this is nothing like the Night Sister case at all. Because there are apparently no men on this planet. And Osha and Mae are the only children that exist here as well. Not only that, but it turns out that they don't even have a father. They just have two moms. With it being revealed that a Zabrak witch by the name of Mother Coral actually gave birth to them, while Anastasia impregnated Coral using the Force, doing so by connecting the threads or something like that. It's pretty much their interpretation of the Force, which not only is it definitely bizarre and makes Anakin seem less special now due to these girls also being born through the Force without a father like him, which now I guess you can argue that they're also the chosen ones? But also what surprised me is how is it that a Zabrak gave birth to these twins, yet they're human? And not just partial human, but full human, so they're not at the very least even half Zabrak. So, yeah, suffice to say, nothing really seems to be making any sense here at all whatsoever. Anyway, as you'd expect, the twins are of course Force sensitive, and these witches, who unlike the Night Sisters that used magic, that made them really unique, instead, these witches only use the Force normally from what we see Anastasia use the Force push a few times in this episode. So that's already disappointing and nowhere near as cool as magic. They just use the Force and call it threads, or connecting the threads and all that stuff. Then one day, the four Jedi whom we already know about, like Indara, Saul, Torben, and Kilnaka, appear at the Witches' Coven, basically interrupting a creepy but also cringy cult ritual induction ceremony, which was to see Osha and Mae become, full legit witches. However, only Mae gets inducted before the Jedi do show up, and then with Indara telling Anastasia that they know, hey, that there are children present here, and because of that, the Jedi want to test them. Which, alright, well, for starters, all I have to ask is how in the world did the Jedi find out about the twins' existence in the first place? Sure, we find out that Sol was straight up stalking them earlier on in the episode, like some sort of child predator, but that doesn't explain what made or tipped the Jedi off to randomly come to Brendok of all places in the first place. And furthermore, both twins are already too old to train as Jedi either way. We know how much trouble the Council gave Qui-Gon when he wanted to train Anakin, right? So why are Indara and friends so insistent on wanting to train Osha and Mae here? Sure, they're technically a year younger than Anakin was, but come on. According to the Jedi lore, they're still too old, so this doesn't make any sense, as you'd guess. Finally, why in God's name would you, knowingly, being the dark witches that you are, look down upon everyone else in the galaxy, literally tell the Jedi, aka the space police, that you managed to create life without the need of a male? Like, how in the world does telling the Jedi this information benefit you whatsoever? You could have easily just had lied and said that their father was some random dude who stopped by on Brendok on his travels, got jiggy with it, and then left the next morning, and boom, Anastasia would later find herself to be pregnant with twins. That would have been so much easier to tell the Jedi, but apparently not. Then again, to be fair, it's not like the Jedi exactly question her about how she created the twins out of thin air anyway, which that as well was shocking. What also doesn't make any sense is why Sol walks up and hands Osha, a 7-8-year-old child, his lightsaber. Why would you do this? It's like a cop walking up to some kid and then handing them his gun. Not only is it incredibly irresponsible, but also dangerous for both parties. Furthermore, Osha claims that she wants to become a Jedi, and hold up just a second. Is nobody gonna question the fact that Osha already knew about the Jedi or what a saber was? Even though she never seen a Jedi before. How does she know so much about the Jedi anyway? Prior to this, the witches don't even mention the word Jedi to the girls, nor even if they taught them of that off-screen. And even then, I can't even imagine they would have said anything nice or positive about the Jedi either, so once again, say it with me, none of this is making any sense at all. Also, I'm starting to think that these two twins might turn out to be maybe a dyad in the Force. It's just a hunch right now, but seeing as we do know that Osha and Mae were created by unknown means, presumably some dark side magic involved, they're special and connected to one another, then, well, alls I'm saying is that I won't be surprised if this turns out to be the case or even the so-called twist later on. Now, while the witches don't take too kindly to the Jedi's request to test the girls, they do, however, end up accepting it to avoid any potential trouble. You know, the implications involved. Even though behind the scenes, Coral later suggests to Anastasia that they just off the Jedi, due to the fact that the witches simply outnumber the 4 Jedi and who would miss them. However, Anastasia turns this down and instead instructs Osha and Mae to deliberately fail the tests, which would then result in the Jedi leaving them empty-handed. And like this old witch says, they either pass the test or they don't. Oh, hey, you don't say. Such riveting writing. However, this doesn't exactly go to plan, as Osha ends up unintentionally passing the test anyway, showing the Jedi her interest in wanting to see the galaxy and meet other children. Mae, on the other hand, is then enraged of the thought that her sister wants to leave and become a Jedi, and then suddenly goes psychotic and tells Osha that she'll kill her, locking her inside a room and then starts a fire by using the Force, and whoa, talk about that escalating quickly. Earlier in the episode, they seem to love each other, were all cutesy-wootsy, and were inseparable. Yet now all of a sudden, Mae wants to become a little psycho demon child and can't stop saying how she wants to kill her only sister. Crazy. Anyway, this seemingly ends up causing the whole sanctuary to be engulfed by the fire, as well causing explosions and even killing every witch inside. Which I have no idea how in the world this could even be remotely possible. Not only how can a stone building catch on fire so easily like this, but how did none of the witches even have a fire escape plan or anything like that? After another poorly written encounter, Osha sees Mae seemingly fall and die, with Sol out of nowhere showing up at the last minute to whisk Osha away to safety, because of course. Sol showing up here at the right place at the right time is not creepy and super convenient. Almost seems like he still couldn't stop stalking an 8-year-old child. And then, feeling partially responsible for the tragedy, Saul pledges that he will personally train Osha as his Padawan learner as he takes her to Coruscant. The end. And honestly, the first time I watched this episode, I thought it was probably the most stupid piece of Star Wars content to date. Yeah, you could say that's pretty harsh, but that's just how I felt. Although, on a second viewing, I have since changed my opinion considerably, and that has to do with the last half of the episode and the whole fire aspect, which the episode made you believe that, the fire was all of Mae's doing, and well, because of how bad the writing has been thus far, it's kind of hard not to think otherwise. I don't want to give them too much credit into being smarter than they actually are, because, that I tried that before with Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and it just backfired on me. So, yeah, I think that while Mae really did start the fire and all, that's not what killed the witches, and there's gotta be more to the story here, which is fair. At the same time, I did find it hard to believe that, the Jedi would just show up and kill them all. Not only because they don't really have a reason to do that, or at least not that from what we saw, but we don't see any lightsaber wounds and dismemberment on any of the witch corpses. Then again, maybe they did fight and all the gore is just censored and cleaned up, who knows? More so, if that was the case, then I'm thinking this was actually the doing of Mother Coral. As after all, she seemed pretty angry that the witches preferred to work with rather than kill the Jedi. And as well, she was unsuccessful in trying to keep the twins to stay together on Brendok. My assumption is that she took over Torben's body like Anastasia did earlier on, and perhaps instigated the fighting between the Jedi and the Coven. Not to mention, we don't see Coral among the bodies of the witches either, leading me to suspect that she could still be alive and, behind all of this. Of which I'm sure we'll get an answer to this in a next episode, hopefully, as this one was more so through the perspective of Osha's eyes, and not to mention she could also simply just be an unreliable narrator. Regardless, this doesn't absolve everything else in this episode, which I simply did not think was good at all. Whether it be the horrible basic writing, the bland directing, the irritating acting by the child actors, which, to be fair, compared to the cringy acting by the adult witches, wasn't any better either. And overall poorly made decisions which not only don't help this show so far, but also now worsens aspects in other Star Wars media before it, which is not something you want to do. What more can I say? I wanted to love this episode, but unless the next one significantly improves, I'm pretty much beginning to lose faith in the Acolyte. And that was my take on this episode of The Acolyte. Let me know what you all thought about the episode in the comments below, and if you haven't already, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.